Sandy was an unimaginable event that affected so many families throughout the Rockaway Peninsula and affected my own family. You know, when the storm hit, there was so many forces of nature that came together that wreaked havoc all across the neighborhoods that I represent. Far Rockaway to Breezy Point, Neponsit, Bell Harbor, Bayswater. So many families, a year later now, are still struggling. But what made this storm so unique was that every family had a different story, and everybody had a different challenge they needed to overcome. And what really got us through was families helping families, neighbors helping neighbors, friends helping friends, and most often, strangers helping strangers to allow our communities to get the relief they needed and ultimately recover. Sadly, city government failed. When we all were waiting for the white knight to come in and rescue us and provide us the relief we need, it just wasn't there. And we had to rely on each other. And the same way so many forces of nature came together to bring Sandy, so many forces of goodwill came together to provide us the relief and ultimately the recovery we need. So it's a year later, and so many families are still struggling. And once again, the story hasn't changed. The challenges across this community are vastly different. Some families have their houses built but are still fighting with their insurance companies. Some families who have nothing but a foundation and are waiting for your bureaucracy to get out of the way to get their homes built again. The one thing I will say is that what we've proven to the world is that our communities are resilient and that we're not running away scared, that this storm was an adversity that we have now overcome. And a year later, while we're not back yet, we are well on our way. And every single day, there are more signs of recovery. Every single day, there's more reasons to be hopeful that we're going to be back stronger than ever. My family had evacuated before the storm, but I actually stayed in my house to ensure that after the storm, I'd be available to any resident who needed my help. And as the waters were coming into my house, I evacuated and ended up at the local police precinct, where I got to see firsthand the heroism of the officers running in and out of the precinct with the tools, sometimes without the tools they needed to ensure that they were going to come back. But that didn't stop them. Everybody ran out to do everything they could to help families in need. And I recall one story where an officer in full scuba gear had come back into the precinct in the middle of the night, clearly had done hours of rescue and recovery work, had saved countless families from the surging waters of the ocean and the rising waters of the bay. And as he walked into the precinct, he started taking off his equipment that weighed probably 10, 20, 50 pounds. And he starts stripping it off and he sits down and you can tell he was spent. And yet just a few minutes later, someone comes running up, whispers something in his ear, tells him they've got to go out, and like it was his first call of the night, puts all his equipment back on and goes running out. I got to watch that heroism, and that is only one example of what I've seen over this past year. Every community has faced its challenges, whether it was in Breezy Point, whether it was in Neponsit, whether it was in Far Rockaway. In every single communities, there were leaders who were tired, who were spent, who were going through their own suffering, who got up and responded to every call as though it was their first call. Everybody stood up, and that's how we survived. That's how we've made it a year later. There's a lot left to do. Department of Financial Services is working to push insurance companies. The federal government has improved money, and yet we still haven't seen that money go to the families who need it. We've got to make sure the families have the resources and the tools they need to survive. I've committed throughout this storm that I was going to be here, and it's a year later, and our resolve has not diminished even a little bit. Our goal is to be on the ground to do whatever needs to be done until every family is safe and secure back in their own home. I wish we could say that it's been a year and it's all behind us, but sadly there's so much more to go. But what is one person's chaos is another's hope. And as I was in Breezy Point just yesterday and I walked around to see construction going on and hammers being banged and crews working, I overheard someone say, you know, how sad is this? Look at these homes, they're completely destroyed. But for me, it was quite the opposite. For me, to hear those hammers, to see the construction crews, that for me was hope. Hope that at some point in the future, our families are gonna be back, and that I know we are building back stronger than ever. We've seen so many challenges, but God doesn't give us challenges that we can't overcome, and our families have already proven we can overcome the worst tests, and we're gonna continue to do that. Every single day, the needs change all across the Rockaway Peninsula. We have to ensure there's protections for the future, but together, we can get this done. People often ask me, what am I going to do for them? And my answer is always quite simple. I can't do anything for you, but when we work together, when there's strong community leadership, when there's the will of people to accomplish something, that's when government can step in, work together, and ensure that we have a unit that is going to resolve all our families' problems and ensure that every family has the resources they need and ultimately see our community rebuilt back stronger than ever.